and welcome to Inside the Pressure Cooker, where cooks and chefs share their stories of life inside the kitchen.
Very early on, my first job as a chef at a small restaurant in Laguna Beach called Taboo Grill, where I was kind of chef and partner at that restaurant. And that was my first chef job. And I was so scared to death of failure, I think, that I succeeded very well. But what we had there was a small restaurant, like a 41-seat restaurant. We had probably about 5 waiters, 6 waiters, maybe altogether. And we would have about 3 waiters on every night on the busier nights, 2 on the slower nights. Those waiters, I mean, I spent so much time with education, with wine, with beer, with food, with pairing kind of thing, what to suggest, going through the food, going through the wine, letting them taste wine, educating them on wine, something I know a bit about. And those waiters thrived. I mean, they were salespeople, man. They were fantastic. I had some of the best waiters in the world because they realized, hey, if I follow chef, he's going to lead me to the pot of gold.
But that's it. Man, it was really a lot of fun to connect with Jeff on this episode. Talk a lot about well done chicken. And just kind of the state of the union as far as from the front of the house, the back, and where we're at today. And just sharing a lot of knowledge for some new people coming into this industry. Here's the rest by Chef Jeff Platt and I talking about food, culinary school, service staff, and training. Yeah, so you mentioned you had some stories.
Oh yeah. Well, I think outside of stories, I think, like you said, the whole idea here is to kind of give people coming into this industry a little bit of a taste of what it's like to be a cook, more importantly, and to be a manager as a chef. And I think those are 2 very separate things. And the chef aspect, I don't know how it was with you going through culinary school. I know with me, there really wasn't any classes on what it's like to be a chef, and people think, oh, you went to culinary school, you're a chef, and just like college, you don't get out and you become the CEO of a company because you have a business degree. You have to work and work and work, obviously. And that is literally what it's like coming out of culinary school. You're really just kind of young and dumb, and you think you know a lot about. Yeah, and you really think you know a lot about food until you get into a kitchen. You realize you really don't know much at all. But culinary school is actually really good. I always tell people that ask me, should I go to culinary school? And I always say, why? You're working in my kitchen now. You really don't have to. It's not always necessary. And I always recommend for people who do want to go to culinary school, work in a kitchen first.
Right.
Because I would bet 80% or more of the people I went to culinary school probably couldn't hack it in a kitchen because it's a tough environment. It's physically demanding. Emotionally, it's a bit strenuous, and it's not for everybody. And some people are maybe going to culinary school are more suited for what I do now, which is private chef. I think culinary school is really good for that. But it doesn't necessarily always prepare you for the rigors of working in a kitchen, unless, of course, your culinary school has a working kitchen, working restaurant.
A working restaurant that's got some volume to it.
Yeah, and when I went to culinary school, there was no kitchen. We didn't have a restaurant to work out of, so it was just going to class, making a couple of recipes every day, and then going to work or going home, and so I think that's what I would want to get across, more so than just stories necessarily. But
Sure.
If there's a way to be instrumental or helpful in any way to a younger generation or anybody who's actually older that wants to get into cooking, get a job in a restaurant. And if that means you have to be a busboy or a dishwasher, then that's what you do. You strive for excellence in everything you do. I found personally I moved up the chain very quickly because I never said no. I showed up to work not on time. I showed up early, which in my opinion is on time. And I did everything that was asked of me, and I never said no, and I never questioned why, because it didn't matter. The whys didn't matter for me. What mattered to me was improving my education with food, and learning about working in kitchens. Because prior to culinary school, for me, I'd never worked in a kitchen. I was actually bartending at the time at Chart House here in Dana Point, California, and that's what I was doing, and I'd never really stepped foot in a kitchen until culinary school, and then after that it was wow, it just kind of took off from there.
Right. So what I mean, from bartending to culinary school, why'd you get into what made you make that jump?
Yeah, I think my wife smacked me in the head and said, "Hey, you gonna be a bartender your whole life?" And she's like, you love to eat. Why don't you go to culinary school? And I was like, well, that's maybe a pretty good idea. And I've always liked food, and so I decided it was just one of those things. It was just like, yeah, let's do this. And so I really didn't know what I was getting into. Honestly, really did not know what I was getting into. And I think for me, because I'm physically a very hard worker with everything I do. It seemed like a natural fit for me. I did really well in culinary school, but again, that's just book grades. And when I got out of culinary school, going into my first job at Roy's in Newport Beach, and he was nice enough to hire me. This was about 2000 or 2001. I want to say 2000, actually. When I got hired there, I was making $10.50 an hour. I think minimum wage was $10 or $9 or something like that was minimum wage at the time. Might have been lower than that, actually. So I was like, wow, I don't know how I'm going to pay off culinary school, or my rent for that matter, but that's what it is. I didn't see it as, oh, this job sucks because I don't get paid enough. I saw it as opportunity. And that kitchen was pretty amazing. You move fast in that kitchen. It's a high volume restaurant. And it taught me a lot. I only worked there for 1 year. I had another opportunity after that, but I worked there for 1 year, and I learned so much, and I moved up so fast from starting out on veg, where you're just setting plates basically, and moving it up the chain essentially to the next person who adds something that he did to that plate, to like a saute station or the grill station. And those two guys that worked grill and then worked the flat top. They kind of controlled the flow of everything, because they worked all the proteins. So they weren't sauteing veg or putting mashed potatoes on a plate, so to speak. Those guys were working all the proteins, so they controlled the flow. And I worked my way up in 6 months to the flat top station, and it's a fish house, so primarily. So that's probably 75% of all the food coming out of that kitchen goes through that flat top. The proteins do. So I took advantage of every opportunity. I didn't think of it as I'm not getting paid enough and I'm getting overworked. I think that's a wrong mentality to have in any job, quite frankly. I think, again, take advantage of every opportunity you have. Up to the last chef job I had, I washed dishes on holidays. I washed dishes on any day, quite frankly. I'd go over and give the dishwashers a break and wash dishes myself, because there was something to learn. There was maybe a better flow. Maybe we needed a better flow in the dishwashing station that I wasn't aware of, because when I get back there and do it, and maybe I get a little frustrated from time to time with it, and it's kind of like, okay, we need to work on a better flow for these guys, because their job is harder than maybe it needs to be. It's important to see every aspect of a kitchen.
Yeah.
Now I'm kind of rambling on here, Chef. So you might have to. You're going to have to reel me in a little bit. I'm just going to go all over the map.
No, sometimes that's kind of the best part of it. So we kind of just jumped into this and kind of rolled into it, kind of talking about culinary school. But let's give everybody a quick elevator pitch on who is Jeff.
Yeah, thanks. So I went to culinary school about 22 years ago, and got out and worked in a few different restaurants. I essentially wasn't sure I wanted to work in kitchens. I thought it would be a great experience. I thought it'd be really cool. Never realized I would move up as quick as I did in the ranks, and I did, and it was very exciting for me. And I'm more passionate about food and about learning. I always tell people, if you like food, learn geography. Because it's food's obviously very global, and it's something everybody, every country, every religion can speak to. So For me, it was a little encompassing of everything. It was geography. It was learning about food. It was the education. It was more than just learning how to make a butter sauce kind of thing,
Sure.
that I really enjoyed. So, moving around the various restaurants, I think what I've gained over the years more than anything is insight, a sense of practicality with the job, making it making taking the job and making it workable, and that's just something that you learn with time. And so for me, there's my pause. I feel like my elevator pitch is more like a sermon.
Nah, you're good,
Actually,
man.
yeah,
So, I mean, you've been into this for over 20 years now, 22, 23 years. Um,
yeah.
how did you know it was for you?
Well, and that's interesting because I don't know that I knew until I got out and really started working in kitchens. I had fun in culinary school. It was fun to go to school every morning and meet the people there and make some friends. And then getting out and working and making new friends. I mean, the restaurant industry is full of characters.
To say
Characters
the
is the right way
least.
to describe it, and so it's dealing with so many different personalities, which makes you a good chef, by the way. It's dealing with all those personalities and finding out who you may agree with and not agree with. But for me,
Sure.
I think sorry, I'm a little hoarse this morning.
No, you're good, man. No, and I mean, there's so many personalities out there. I mean, that's kind of where the idea of this podcast came from, was just to kind of get some of these personalities out there.
Yeah,
Um, but the other part too is, like you mentioned, like being a great chef or a good chef, so to speak, is learning to work with all those personalities, how to communicate with each one, because there is no, anytime you get into leadership, right? There is no copy and paste approach to communication. I mean, you've got to be able to talk to everybody differently in their own way to motivate them and get shit done.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's actually probably the most important part of your job as a chef. That you learn on site, and you learn as you go, and you have to be very cognizant about how you do talk to the people that work with you and for you, because they can make or break you.
Absolutely.
My last job, I had over 20 employees in the kitchen, and it's a lot of work managing that many personalities, but it's necessary. You have to know how to play to each personality in order to get them to thrive, get them to work at their best, and that's a lot of work in itself.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because you're part coach, part mentor, part counselor.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, and with that, with that comes disciplining. With that comes firing also. And I hate to say I've gotten really good at letting people go, at firing people, but that's really part of the job. You get bad eggs, or people who do dumb things, and I always like to think, hey, I didn't fire them; they fired themselves. So it makes my job easy. But then other times you just have performance issues, and it's time to let people go after a while. And those are hard to do. I had to
Yeah.
actually. I remember I had to fire my friend who was my sous chef at a job, and that was probably the hardest fire I had because I really liked him, and I got to tell you, probably today I'll bet he's a better cook than I am. I'll bet he's more knowledgeable than I am with food, and I love that guy. We're still friends today, of course, but that was probably the hardest fire I had, was firing a friend. So note to anybody listening: don't hire your friends.
Yeah. Friends or family.
Yep, that's right.
Um, no, and I mean, yeah, I've been in those positions where I've had to fire people, and it's never easy, because you're right. I mean, it's one of those, hey, they fired themselves because they put themselves in the spot where now I've got to react to it.
Yeah,
Um, but even though that the whole concept of, they fired themselves, it still just put me in a bad mood all day.
yeah,
Even it's, I mean, 20, I couldn't even tell you how many people I've had to let go. And it just, even though you kind of get numb to it, it's still, it doesn't get easier. You just get numb to it.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, but I think there's, again, you always look for the lesson. So you're always kind of prepping yourself for that conversation, and you're always prepping
Yeah.
yourself for, well, what if they come back and say, well, I disagree. I think you're wrong. And being able to have that conversation with that individual that you're letting go, and it is a skill. It is a skill.
Yeah. And but I also looked at letting someone go as an opportunity for just kind of looking at some insight to me because, like you said, you're always trying to read that person and how do I work with them and how do I help them grow. So I always ask myself, like, how did I fail this person? Like,
Yeah,
I
that's a good
and
point.
so and so that's why it was never really easy because I always took it somewhat personally, where it was like, man, I failed somehow. I failed in whether it was communication or motivation or yeah, most of the time, no, I hadn't failed anywhere because it was just that person just wasn't. It didn't matter what I did;
Yeah,
they weren't gonna show up and perform,
yeah, no, you're
or
absolutely right.
show up at all. Um,
Yeah, true.
so
We've all had our share of those guys.
yeah,
And I'll be honest with you, on a Friday, Saturday night, you hope it's not your dishwasher that decides not to show up. You know?
yeah. There's just about any station you can cover, but when
Yeah,
it comes to the dishwasher,
I
it's
know.
fuck.
Yeah, I know. It's because that's a late night job too. You're like the last one leaving kind of thing. So that's, but yeah, we've all been in that position. We've all had to cover those positions. So
Nice. So, what? How's this? When it comes to cooking, whether it's kind of in your past when you were running your restaurants or as the private chef now, like what inspires you or who inspires you?
yeah, that's a good question. I still think, I mean, cookbooks are always a source of inspiration. I'm always kind of collecting a book here and there. For example, right now I'm reading The Nimble Cook by Ronna Welsh. I'm sorry, I think it's Rona Welsh. I forget her name. And it's such an eye opener. It's a really unique book so I'm kind of been playing around with some recipes in there. Uh, Cookbooks definitely are a source of inspiration by far. I don't really watch cooking shows anymore. I used to a lot when I was really into it, I think, but I really don't so much anymore. I think really it's the challenge I face in today is cooking for personalities now because I'm a private chef at this point in my career. So cooking for personalities, I find that to be extremely challenging because I'm not cooking what I want to cook. I'm cooking what they want to eat. So, for example, like the first, I don't know, 2 months of my job, I wasn't sure they'd want me to come back the next day. I would make something and they wouldn't tell me what they wanted necessarily. So I would make something that I would do in a restaurant and they would be like, this tastes like shit. Like, well, what is this crap you're feeding us? And I'm like, what are you talking about? This is good. Like I make money off of this dish kind of thing, but it's not their taste. And it took me 2 months to figure out that I'm not cooking for myself or for a restaurant. I don't get to create whatever I want. Uh, I have to cook what they want, what are they used to eating, kind of thing. So it's very different. I find that to be a challenge, but I find that to be inspiring as well. So I think books and listening to your customers can be a good source of inspiration. Listening to your GM if you like your GM. If they're, I say that because not all GMs really are that into food or restaurants for that matter. It's unfortunate.
Right.
I don't see enough. Here's the number one thing I disagree with in restaurants that I don't see enough. I don't see GMs or managers for that matter. I see them holding up the counter in the back talking to staff, wasting their time. I don't see them
Yeah.
touching tables. That upsets me because as a chef, whenever I have time, I touch tables. People love when the chef comes out to the table, and I don't do it for my own accolades. I do it because I want to get that customer back. I want them to come back next week or tomorrow or whenever it is, And I also like to hear when something wasn't right. I appreciate the feedback, and I'm very humble as a chef. I always have been. Because I've always felt, hey, this is good, but you can do better. You know.
Sure.
So feedback from customers, feedback from management, it's always good. Sometimes we take it too personally. I know I have in the past. I probably wouldn't anymore, but I know kind of growing up through the ranks, I've always took it personally and thought, what do they know? Well, they know quite a bit because if they're doing their job, they're talking to customers, and that's the feedback you're getting. You're kind of blaming the middle man there.
Now, one point I want to kind of make sure we kind of touch base here. You're talking about talking to the customers in the restaurant right then, and not like those fucking Yelp reviews.
No, I don't really. I'll let the management, I'll let front of the house speak to the Yelp reviews. I don't really. It's so much easier for someone to be critical. When they're typing in a review about something, it's a lot easier. But I think in our society today, especially because of technology, I think most people are spineless and they don't want to give it to the manager. They don't want to complain in the restaurant. They'll sit there on their phone in the restaurant and write a bad Yelp review, but God forbid if they actually had enough backbone to actually tell the manager, that they're dissatisfied with something, whether it's, a bad glass of wine or whatever it may be, kind of
Yeah,
thing.
and it's like the only thing we want to do is make sure they're happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So there's nothing confrontational about saying like, hey, this isn't for me,
Yeah.
or this sucks, or there's whatever the comment happens to be. It's like, hey, give us opportunity to make it right.
Yeah.
Instead, you're just going to go home and like hide behind the screen and just fucking roast us.
Yeah,
Just because,
exactly.
I don't know, you got dumped that night too or something.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely. I mean, if you give me a chance to make it right, I'm gonna do that 100% of the time. I'm gonna try and make it right for the customer. Because we're not perfect. We make mistakes in the kitchen. We don't season things
Sure.
properly. We overcook them, whatever it may be. Somebody's lobster's been, whatever it is. And that happens. It's unfortunate, but it happens. I think the opportunity to correct the mistakes is what people need to give, and I think that's something chefs need to accept is that they're not perfect, no matter how long they've been doing it. That sometimes your cook made a mistake. Maybe it wasn't you, but maybe somebody else under you made the mistake. But give us a chance to fix it.
Yeah, I mean, mistakes are guaranteed to happen.
Yeah.
Right. We always try to minimize them, but hey, like you said, I mean, it's when you're dealing with any kind of volume, it just the chance of mistakes starts going up a little bit. So.
Yeah. But as chefs, we tend to, sometimes our ego gets in the way, and I've been guilty of that in the past. As I'm older now, I look back a little bit and I think about, the ego that was given to me that I gladly accepted, as I was getting a little more notoriety in Orange County and everything. And that was pretty awesome. But looking back, I wasn't like a really egotistical person. I mean, if I was, I probably wouldn't be on the line cooking at every restaurant I've worked at. I'd probably be more on the other side, just yelling at people all day.
That's more fun.
Yeah, that's actually exhausting. So
Yeah.
I'd almost rather just be cooking on the line, quite frankly, because you just get in the zone. So
Yeah. There's so many chefs out there that are like, man, if all I had to do was just fucking cook.
yeah. Because management sucks sometimes, Some nights I just don't, I'm tired. I don't want to deal with my employees. I don't want to deal with the front of the house. I just want to cook, like in somebody else. Can we get an assistant manager back here to expedite, or, a lead or a sous chef or something to expedite? I just feel like cooking and keeping my head down tonight, and that happens also. Nothing wrong with that.
No. It's almost like therapy.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it's kind of a little bit cleansing in some ways, emotionally.
Yeah. Yes, you're right. The other side of the line is just more of that mind fuck.
Yeah.
It can be. I mean, I've some of the high volume restaurants I've been a part of where the chef is just calling tickets on the line, and the cooks, none of the cooks have tickets, right?
Yeah.
So you, as a cook, you got to remember everything that's coming at you, and I mean, just 400 or 500 covers a night kind of thing. But on the chef side, you're calling everything, you're timing everything. So a ticket comes in, you write down on the bottom like, hey, whatever, the 20 minutes after the ticket comes in, and then you just start firing based on how that station's doing at the time. Are they slammed? Are they not slammed? How long does that? I mean, is it a rare steak or a well done steak? Like,
Yeah.
and
Well, if
but
it's
you've
well
got to pair
done,
that with the scallops, and then the guy
Yeah.
coming off the steamer, and so that in itself, at the end of those nights, man, your mind is just fucking mush.
yeah, it's definitely an orchestration that has to happen. Yeah, you don't want the scallops coming up that take about 3 minutes to do versus your well done steak. Which, by the way, the only people who order well done steaks are the guys who just come in and it's an order fire well done steak. It's they never have an appetizer or a first course or anything. It's the well done people are that's all they come in. They sit down, they order a well done steak, and they wonder, "Where's my food? It's been 20 minutes.
Yeah,
Where's my steak?" I'm like,
it.
"Do you want me to butterfly it?" So,
Yeah.
so Chad, I was going to mention also, kind of in the same vein, the difference in the front of the house, how the wait staff and your busters, how and even your management for that matter, but your wait staff primarily. I had two very different experiences. Very early on, my first job as a chef at a small restaurant in Laguna Beach called Taboo Grill, where I was kind of chef and partner at that restaurant. And that was my first chef job, and I was so scared to death of failure, I think, that I succeeded very well. But what we had there was a small restaurant, like a 41-seat restaurant. We had probably about 5 waiters, 6 waiters, maybe altogether. And we would have about 3 waiters on every night on the busier nights, 2 on the slower nights. Those waiters, I mean, I spent so much time with education, with wine, with beer, with food, with pairing kind of thing, what to suggest, going through the food, going through the wine, letting them taste wine, educating them on wine, something I know a bit about. And those waiters thrived. I mean, they were salespeople, man. They were fantastic. I had some of the best waiters in the world because they realized, hey, if I follow chef, he's going to lead me to the pot of gold every time. And those waiters made bank at that small little restaurant. They did really, really well for themselves. It benefited both of us. So those waiters can really make or break a restaurant. It isn't necessarily just the cooks in the kitchen, and because that's your sales team right there. And then versus my last executive chef job that I had at a golf course, which I can talk about that a little bit too. Those waiters didn't know anything about food. They didn't know anything about service. They didn't know anything about wine, for that matter.
Nor did they care.
Yeah, and that's kind of part of the problem I had with some of the staff there. We had a couple bright individuals who understood it, and they were very professional, and they got it. And then we had quite a few that really just didn't care, and they would come back with the dumb questions, and it was just really. I think we need to re-educate you, based on whatever that comment was. And they say there's no such stupid question, but there is.
Oh yeah.
Especially after you've been there for a year. And, my biggest frustration are menu rollouts when I see people not writing things down. We're busting our hump to get this food out for them to try. And they're not taking notes. They're not taking it very seriously. They seem like deer in headlights sometimes. And that's a big sign right there that you're not sure you can count on your front of the house staff to really sell your product, because they're so important to your business.
Yeah. No, I mean, the ones that are really into it and that love the food, I mean, they stand out in so many ways just on their own, and they kind of excel on their own. And it's so much more fun to just interact with them. And just kind of help them. And you can feel the passion. You kind of feed off each other a little bit, right? And they get it. And then I've also had those experiences where you've got those servers that just no matter what, they're just not really going to put the effort in. And I mean, who they are because every time you'll get a ticket that comes in, like it'll be like a patty melt, no tomato, no avocado, and you're like, okay, first. That thing doesn't have a fucking tomato near it. And 2, we don't even have avocado in the building.
Like the one, what's the one you sent me? It was shrimp scampi with a seafood allergy or a shellfish allergy. What does the customer expect me to do? But how dumb is the waiter to not actually ask the question to the guest?
Yeah.
How do you want me to do this?
Yeah, no, it was it was
I don't get it.
It was fried shrimp, and then the modifier said shrimp, seafood allergy or something like
shellfish,
that. Shrimp
allergy.
allergy.
I think it was,
yeah, and it was just like at that point I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me.
Yeah, but those are the tickets. You got to hold on to those tickets and represent them to the staff at the end of the night or the next day if you're doing a little debrief or something. Those are important ones. And again, it's not to insult or to embarrass or insult that individual. It's just to call attention to what's wrong with this picture. You know, like I expect more from you guys out in the front of the house. I don't want to see these things happen. What do we need to do? How about some new training? Do you understand that shrimp is a shellfish, essentially?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, in that one, he did, and it turns out, the story on that one was it was that modifier was supposed to be on another
Oh,
seat,
okay. All right. All right.
and but he forgot to put it in, so
Oh.
he just put it in at the end. But
Yeah.
still, he never said anything.
Yeah. So yeah, someone needs to.
We had to go find him to be like, dude, what the fuck,
Yeah. 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 That would actually.
and that's just a detail thing,
Yeah.
and just not giving a shit about details.
Yeah. I'm gonna look on Instagram or something like that and see if there's websites for chefs or guys in the kitchen who post pictures of front of the house tickets, and kind of how absurd those tickets can get sometimes. It's gnarly, and I know a lot of it's customer based. I know there's just difficult people out there in the world, but a lot of times it's just dumb waiters.
Yeah. But I mean, it's a combination, and just when you're on the other side and you're in the kitchen and it's 8 o'clock on a Saturday night and you're just getting drilled and that ticket comes in, you don't really care who it came from, but it's still like, you got to be fucking kidding me.
Yeah, yeah.
But as a server, though, it's kind of their job to listen, interpret, and guide,
Mm-hmm.
The guest.
Exactly.
And then kind of interpret to us what that guest needs.
Yeah, yeah.
And if it's just something so off the fucking wall, just bring something in and then come talk to us.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, so what happened to the wait staff the last couple of years? I mean, since COVID, everybody was out of a job in a restaurant, it seemed like. But now that everyone's kind of back, it's like, I don't know what happened to all the good waiters. They're gone. It's like they were all retired or something. Everyone decided to get up and work for a new restaurant. Maybe they're like, well, it's time to make a change. But the restaurants I go to, I still don't see very experienced waiters at these restaurants. I'm going to give you a quick story. So not that long ago, my wife and I were up in LA, and we were staying over the night because we went to see a concert, and we went to this really swanky, cool little restaurant. And our waiter, now they weren't even very busy. Our waiter came over, super nice guy, seemed to know what he was talking about. We had really had a good time, but I ordered a bottle of wine. He brought it out, and I wasn't really paying attention to him opening the bottle of wine, but my wife was. And so as I said, you can just pour it. I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure the bottle's fine. And so he did, and he put the wine in the ice kind of thing and walked away. And my wife says, did you notice that bottle when he cracked because it was screw cap. And he said, you notice when he cracked that cap, there was no sound. And I'm like, no, I wasn't paying attention. She goes, that bottle has been open. I think he got that from the service bar. She said it wasn't even full. And I'm like, wait, what? And I'm like, so how bad was that? The waiter just grabbed a bottle that wasn't even a full bottle, walked over and didn't even really open the bottle. And it was already missing like a glass of wine out of it. So so he walked away and she's telling me this. And so I'm like, okay, I'm like literally almost holding my hand up. Like, where's the waiter? Can you come back here, please? And it's just that kind of thing where you kind of go, I don't know how anybody could get away with that. I mean, I don't want to hear any excuses about COVID. That's just, that's nonsense. Where's the education, kind of thing. And I don't remember a manager. There were two of them on. I don't remember a manager coming over and asking, hey, how is everything? We had a manager that was like a manager in training. She came over and like, oh, do you want some 2 fresh glasses? Because they realized the mistake. The waiter came over and was like, I'm really sorry. He seemed very embarrassed by it and wanted to make it right. And that was great, so, but still, it's just one of those, really? You literally are pretending to open a bottle of wine that's already been opened. Didn't you think that was kind of weird, So it's just these experiences that I feel are far too common in today. And the front of the house managers really have their work cut out for them to re-educate, I guess, older employees and,
Sure.
and certainly have their work cut out trying to educate new employees.
Yeah. I mean, so I've got a couple thoughts. Like, first, like some of the seasoned vets, like, when restaurants started closing down, when it comes to service industry, like they literally live not paycheck to paycheck, but day to day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Just off their tips. And so they're not going to wait for something to happen. They're going to, but I mean, they go out there, they're going to drive, they're going to go find a job. And by the time things started going, like they were just where they were.
Yeah.
And so they're kind of, they kind of found a new home, so to speak. So I kind of think that's what happened with a lot of the vets that were out there. And
Yeah.
because of that, there was almost like a generation gap, right? Now the newer people coming in, there's none of that seniority to help train them or guide them.
Yeah, you're right.
And so, and I've seen so much, lack of a better term, coddling with the front of the house.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, it's okay, they don't know this, and we're not gonna they weren't gonna try to train them, or
Right.
I forget some of the stupid shit I've heard.
Yeah. Well, I can see that, and I think coddling is a pretty good appropriate word for that. And I think it's because everyone needs help. Restaurants are maybe not fully staffed, or some restaurants are just having a hard time finding employees. And they don't want to push too hard and have that employee quit on them, because now they're back to zero. It's like, well, I had 5 for the house, and I need 10. I can't afford to be too demanding of anybody, because I need that 5th person. I got to cover shifts. Literally, just have nobody to work.
Well, for me though, I've seen like just basic steps of service are just eliminated because they don't want to try to train it or hold that person accountable. Like, I've seen it where if someone orders a bottle of wine, right, it's the bartender will come out and open it for you, or the manager will. The servers don't even know how to fucking open wine.
Yes.
I mean, you just covered that, right?
Yeah.
And so, but they're like, you know what? Hey, don't worry about, you don't need a wine key. I'm not going to teach you how to open a bottle of wine.
Yeah, I did that at another restaurant, as a matter of fact. Apparently, the Achilles heel is opening a bottle of wine for front of the house, because I did that at another restaurant. I opened a bottle of wine for a girl, because she came out and she was so nervous, and it was like her second day or something, and she didn't know what to do. And I'm like, I could totally tell, it was so obvious. And so I got up and I'm like, would you mind if I just showed you how to do this? I'm like, no, I'm a chef. Like, I worked in restaurants for a long time. I'm just can I help you with this? And I'm a professional drinker, so I know how to open a bottle of wine in less than 3 seconds, kind of thing. But so of course I'm going to show her how to do it, because the manager hasn't, kind of thing. So I feel bad for people in those situations, but there does need to be there has to be expectations. There has to be expectations at the front of the house.
And right now it seems like the only expectation is show up.
Yeah, just show up and clock in, and I hope you're on time. And if you're not, well, can you please be on time tomorrow?
Yeah. So let's jump back into cooking a little bit here.
All right.
What is the one tool that is an absolute must that's in your toolkit? Whether it was
chef knife. No, it's got to be a chef knife. I think it's that simple. I found that there are far too many utensils in kitchens.
Okay.
We use a lot of metal spoons, of course. That's fine. Stainless steel pan. I think that's a must. Not this aluminum crap that just doesn't wear well.
Sure.
Good stainless steel pan, but honestly, a chef knife. I think you got to learn how to utilize one knife for multiple purposes, and that'll save you time. But also, it makes you a better cook if you can use one knife all the time. I use a vegetable cleaver, more or less, that I've used since, I don't know, forever. For, I don't know, more than 16, 17 years I've had this knife, and I still use it every day. And it's just, I've gotten so good with this knife, I don't really need anything else. I use paring knives to open plastic bags, kind of thing. Paring knife has its purpose.
Right.
No, definitely a chef knife. Chef knife, for sure.
All right, what's the second thing that comes out of your kit after your chef knife?
Jesus, I haven't had a kit, I don't know, since culinary school. Since my second job, probably. I would say maybe a good fish spatula.
Okay.
And honestly, it really depends on the station you're working on, too. You're going to have different tools for different stations. Some things are appropriate and other things you're never going to need. If I'm working on a grill, I don't need a fish spatula. A different type of spatula, just a long offset handled spatula is probably going to work a little bit better for those grill grates than a fish spatula would. But so it really depends on station, I think. But I think having a little bit of something for everything is important.
Sure. No, I mean, I love my fish spat. I use it for just about everything at home. So.
Oh, you know what my favorite tool is right now? Because I've never seen this before. I'm like, what a lame little piece of instrument this is. And it's almost kind of debatable. If it wasn't like in a kitchen, you'd wonder what this might get used for. It's a little silicone tube, and it's about 3-4 inches long, and it's meant for peeling garlic. So you put garlic cloves in, and you rub it on your counter kind of thing, and it helps peel the garlic for you. Because I hate peeling garlic. I friggin' hate peeling garlic. And I love this little tool. It's like my little go-to.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's kind of one of my useless gadgets. But those are the kind of things you don't need those in a kitchen. You don't need that in your knife kit kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Man, so we're going. So let me see. It's 10:52. We kind of have to wrap this up a little bit, right?
Sure.
I wasn't sure. I mean, kind of where you're at on some of the timing. So.
I'm okay. I got time.
We're going through, so I'm just looking at some of the questions I've got. We've kind of covered a lot of this as we go through. Like you mentioned, I have on here like some of the biggest challenges facing the industry today. Like, I mean, would you still say it's the front of the house, or is there some other element of the restaurant industry that's, I don't want to call it crisis mode, but just kind of that has come out of COVID in such a different way where it's just like, man, it's almost concerning.
Yeah, well, it's always easier to train a waiter, a busboy, a front of the house manager. For them, half of their job is memorization, the other half is personality, and then they just fall into a routine. But I definitely think it's much harder to hire cooks, because depending on how specialized your restaurant is, that can be extremely difficult, and that takes a long time. It's not like you just hire somebody and you give them a recipe and they follow it, because we all know what happens when you give somebody, you can give 3 ingredients to 3 different people, and you're going to have 3 different recipes.
Yep.
They're not going to taste the same. So technique is very important, and it takes a long time to teach technique. That is the hidden art of cooking.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's all technique.
Yeah.
Technique and finesse.
Yep. I was going to add one more thing,
sure.
Actually, Chad. I think, as far as I was thinking about books that I've been reading and books I always go back to. And if the one thing I could probably say for people coming out of culinary school, or just getting into this business, again, you don't have to go to culinary school to be a really fine chef, to be a good cook.
No.
It's not necessary. But you got to work at it. Everybody has to work at it. I think, again, what I would say is vegetable cookery. Don't worry about, how to grill a filet perfectly, because maybe you already do that at home. What I would say, and I feel like that's the one thing we didn't do enough of, it was always protein centric, and I think most people's mindset is always protein centric. It's like, okay, I've got a New York steak, and here's what I want to put with it. But you're always thinking about that New York steak first. And what I've kind of learned over probably the last 10 years that I've kind of tried to focus more on is starting a dish being more vegetable centric, and then saying, hey, what protein could I add to this if I wanted to? And so the perfect books for those, the ones I always go back to, I'm going to give a shout out to Yotam Ottolenghi, because that guy is amazing. His first book that I bought was Plenty. He's got about 5 or 6 cookbooks out there, I think. I've got 4 of his now. But his vegetable cookery is absolutely insane. And by the way, he's not a vegetarian.
I just assumed he was by all that.
I know. He actually was asked to start writing articles on vegetarian food for a magazine. I think it was The Guardian or something like that. And so he started writing, recipes and ideas for vegetable cookery. for vegetarians through this magazine. And then I don't know if he just fell into it from there, but obviously he saw a niche,
Yeah.
And his books are incredible. So anybody looking for a good vegetarian cookbook, Plenty by Yotam Ottolenghi. It's an amazing book, and I promise if you do a couple recipes out of there, you're going to get hooked, and you're going to want to pick up some of his other books.
No, yeah, I like a lot of his books as well. Plenty is a great one, and I mean, you're right. I mean, so the vegetable centric, it almost seems to be like the new trend. That's coming along.
Well, again, I think it's because it's kind of a lost art. People don't think about that. You don't think about, I want to go out to eat tonight. What vegetable do I feel like eating? You're always like, do I feel like salmon? Do I feel like a steak? Do I want shrimp? Oh yeah, I got that allergy thing.
Yeah, and I remember just designing my allergy thing that designing menus and creating menus, and I just come up with these vegetarian dishes, and everything would be great. It would taste fantastic. It would look beautiful. And we'd all stand around looking at it. And we were like, it's like, it's missing something. Right? We couldn't figure it out what it was. And it's like, what's missing?
Was it the garnish?
Yeah, the garnish, which was the protein. Yeah. It's like, dude, it needs like a big piece, whether it's salmon or halibut or scallops or, or a braised shank or something on there. It was like, because mentally we're just so used to, start with your protein and then kind of build around it. Yeah. And so once we got rid of that concept of that protein, we were just designing vegetarian dishes. It was mentally very challenging to kind of get past that.
Yeah, I agree. And I would say majority of restaurants, their vegetarian dish that they'll put on a menu is based on whatever's left over, whatever they order for other dishes, and half the time it's sautéed. I hate the term steamed vegetables because you know what they're doing. They're actually blanching, not steaming. First off.
Yep.
How many times do you see cooks pulling a basket of vegetables? There's nothing worse than cauliflower that's been boiled and not seasoned properly. Like there's nothing. I went, oh my God, you actually pay for that? That is just, how can you do that? So that right there should be inspiration enough for a chef or a cook, for anybody to say, hey, maybe there's a better way to serve this. But it's always been kind of the leftover, I think. Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this. I got a question for you, Chad.
Yeah.
What words in our business, because do you think are overplayed or you just don't like seeing in general on menus?
Oh, fuck. Man, I don't even know how to go down that. I mean, that's just kind of a rabbit hole of...
Yeah.
Because
mine would have to be premium. I'll just throw mine out there while you're thinking of something.
Premium,
okay. And natural's another one because natural doesn't actually mean anything anymore. It used to. But premium is not a word, like a premium steak, and you hear it like the advertising kind of thing. Premium steaks, and it's like, what does that mean? That's not a grade of meat. Premium is not a grade of anything. No. Chicken, pork, seafood. It's not a grade. It's just premium. It's top shelf.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that I'm just tired of seeing is all the branding on menus. And because all that is marketing, and it's just marketing companies that are creating stuff and they're paying for their menus to be printed, or maybe they're giving you something else as well, but. Mm-hmm. But these marketing companies are taking words that used to mean something and should mean something, and just dragging them through the dirt until they don't mean anything anymore. And then they leave that fucking horse dying in the ditch over there, and then find a new word. Just destroy. And so, I've mentioned it in other shows here, but I mean, like the concept of sustainability, that used to be a thing. And it used to mean something. And then, but marketing companies got a hold of it. Artisanal, right? Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's a good one too. That used to be a great word too. I think that one, certainly has been played out.
And I'm just like, artisanal, okay.
I'm going to find that at Burger King pretty soon,
Yeah. I mean, So factory processed fill in the blank is now artisanal,
Yeah, yeah.
because they
You
gave
mean
it a rustic look.
somebody thought it up?
Yeah,
So that makes he someone Phil in accounting thought this would be a great idea, and so we're calling it artisanal because Phil had an artistic idea
yeah,
of how
yeah,
we can package this product.
yep. So
Yeah,
I
for
mean,
sure.
words like that where it's just, I mean, or just there's it's hard to say if there's another specific word, but just unnecessary fluff.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Lack of genuality. Is that a word? Genuality? I don't know if that's a word.
Fucking, I'll go with
Um,
it.
yeah, no, we're gonna go ahead and say that's a word.
It is now.
But yeah, there's a lack of that, I think, in menus today. And yeah, everyone's looking for the, you know, but I do
Well,
think it's important. I think it's great, actually. I mean, in some regards, to be able to tell people where your food's coming from. Like, hey, this particular farm, it's Salmon Creek or whatever it may be. This is Iberica ham kind of thing. And I think there's nothing wrong with that, of course. But when
no,
they go into all the descriptive words, that the premiums of the world and the artisanals, that's just a bridge they don't need to go down.
no,
Don't
and I
need to
mean,
cross.
yeah, and I mean,
You
if
don't go down a bridge, do you? No, like a ladder. Yeah, it's a bridge you don't have to cross. It's just
yeah,
unnecessary.
I mean, there's some. I mean, if the item you're showcasing has like a true pedigree, then
Hmm.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, but don't use it or just to just to use it.
Yeah, just for the
I
sake of using
mean,
it.
it's um, that doesn't necessarily make sense, but
No,
um,
I mean, it makes perfect sense. Don't use it because there's just no need for it. There's just too many words on a menu. Quite frankly, I think we could just read less, and that would be okay. It's not describing the dish at all. It's just fluff. You
yeah,
know.
and I mean, but like I said, I mean, you throw the pedigree on there. Um, but there's also, I've seen it where some of those restaurants that are going out there that they're not using their Iberico, but it's like Iberico something, and you're like, no, it's fucking not, and I think
Yeah.
it's just part of
Yeah.
everybody. And unfortunately, the guest is just, they're ignorant to it. They don't
Yeah.
know that this person really doesn't have that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Uh,
so they're kind of just trying to cheat their way through it.
yeah. You know
You
what the
know.
best example of that is right there? Beef short ribs. Beef short ribs, my friend, and you know that, right? That's not short rib. That's chuck meat. Don't
Yeah,
don't try and pass this off as short rib, man.
yeah, the
I know
boneless
the
short
difference in
rib.
the taste. Yeah, between boneless short rib and beef chuck.
Yeah, no,
But they
boneless
get
short
sold
rib.
on that. I've
Yeah,
been sold on that as well, and I'm like, I don't know. I'll do this, but I don't feel good about putting this on a menu. And it's like, no, I can't do this. I can't call this short rib. It doesn't really taste like short rib.
yeah, it's a
You
pot
know,
roast.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it's premium grade.
yeah.
So, you know,
Well, but that's the concept of short rib is an interesting one, because that's also the concept of marketing getting involved, because short rib for a long time, like, man, I don't know, call it 20 years ago, 15 years ago, was a very underutilized cut, and it was cheap as shit.
yeah,
And
yep,
the beef industry itself was like, okay, how do we kind of start moving this? Because all of a sudden we are becoming like a freezer backlog of this stuff.
right, yeah,
And
because
and
what we're
then
selling is New York ribeye and fillet.
yeah, everybody was going for
Yeah,
those middles. And so some chefs got behind it and started creating recipes, and people were just like, holy shit, this is great. And it was about the time the sous vide was becoming a little more popular, and you'd see like the 72-hour short rib.
yeah,
Um,
right.
and then all of a sudden, like, it became so damn popular that it was more expensive than buying tenderloin, beef tenderloins. And it's
Yeah,
like,
now it's
it, it's ridiculous. And it was like, man, this used to be the cheapest cut of the animal. Now it's one of the most expensive.
yeah,
And
for
it
sure.
it it doesn't mean that it's because the quality is that much greater. It's just now the demand is there, and it's like,
Right. Yep.
but people keep fucking buying it, and you're like, motherfuckers, find something else,
Oh, and
right?
they do. I mean, hence the flat iron steak. I think I was using flat irons back in
Yeah,
about 2004 is when I started buying flat iron steaks.
sure.
And they were kind of, I think, a little bit new on the scene. At least they were, where I live. But they were kind of new on the scene in Orange County, and I'm like, yeah, let's go with that. I mean, cost wise, it was economical. I didn't have to put a $40 steak on a menu. That was always nice to have. So yeah, it always goes through trends, and obviously the industry kind of picks the direction, because it's all based on price, and that's how, chefs have to shop price a lot of times. There's a lot of things you'd love to put on a menu. I think looking back, if I could never put filet on the menu ever again, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
Just because it's so overplayed. Everybody has a filet. I don't want to be like every other restaurant out there and oh, you got a filet on the menu? Yeah, I got a filet.
Well, that just goes to the next part. Like I said, like marketing with the beef industry, like there's only so many fucking cuts of animal or muscles on a cow. But like now there's like new cuts. I'm like, no, it's not a new cut. I mean, like
they're just
the
reinventing.
Manhattan.
That's all.
Yeah, the Manhattan strip. Okay, so you do a thick cut New York strip and then cut it in half. So
exactly.
Now it's a Manhattan filet.
Yeah,
no, it's a fucking New York strip.
Yeah, you just cut a New York strip in half.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that annoys the shit out of me when people go for that too. And it's like, God damn it.
Yep.
So, all right. Anything else we're not talking about?
Well, I was going to mention the one thing that it didn't really occur to me until I think I got into, the last job I had for 9 years as executive chef at a golf club. And it was a public course. And when I got into that job, it was in dire need of help on the food and beverage side for sure. They were doing pretty good banquets, golf tournaments, a few weddings a year kind of thing. And I stepped in and saw an incredible opportunity, this gorgeous backdrop of this location and nice golf course, all that kind of stuff. And I think, again, going back to what I think started out talking about, which was opportunity. Never let an opportunity pass you by. I managed in that restaurant to create so much more work for myself. Had I just left it alone and maybe just improved the food a little bit, then I probably would have stayed there longer because it would have been comfortable. But we wouldn't have had the clientele we did. I took a $2 million F&B and turned it into nearly $4 million in probably the first few years.
Nice.
By I think about year 4, year 5, we had almost doubled our F&B sales. And that drove golf revenue as well because people would come to our restaurant. Literally, I remember 2 guys fly down from San Francisco. They would play different golf courses, but they always came to my golf course to eat. And guess what they always ate? Filet. Yep, filet. So never let an opportunity pass you by. Take advantage of everything. If you are just going to be starting out as a dishwasher or starting out as a lonely veg cook like I was, take advantage of that position, learn everything, do it perfect every time, and pay attention to the next position. Pay attention to the guy working next to you who's been there a little bit longer. Let him show you the ropes in his position as well. Learn how to do that because that's your next job is what he does. And you don't want to, your boss is not going to give you a job doing something you don't know how to do. He might give you that job on veg kind of thing, like my boss did to me, but you're not going to move up by not already knowing that next position. You're going to move up a lot. You're going to transition a lot better by already having some value in that position. So you got to maintain that value and I take advantage of every position I've ever had, and I moved up very quickly. And I've done well for myself. I had expectations of myself, of course. I worked very hard. I hate being late, so I was always early. And I think that's probably the number one thing. You've got to put in the work. Nobody's going to do it for you. You can complain all day long that your boss sucks, that nobody listens to you, that, whatever your gripes, whatever your complaints are, go home and say that in the mirror if you want. But, you've got to show up and you've got to do the work, and it is hard work, but it's very satisfying. And what I love about it also, instant gratification. You get to hear back from staff how, table 5 they love that dish. They love the steamed broccoli. Cauliflower was the example.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
The steamed broccoli. But when you put that plate together and you're like, damn, that's beautiful. right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
that alone is the instant gratification.
It
Even if you
is.
don't hear back from them.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I don't know.
No,
I got a question for you, Chad. Are you good at just mentally putting food together? Like you know what everything tastes like, and so you can literally just put a dish together in your mind just based on knowing how everything tastes.
yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
I think that's something to strive for because I think as chefs we elevate ourselves to that point where we're able to do that.
yeah. No, I mean that's develop your taste memory,
Yeah,
and I mean
yeah,
that's just try everything. Oh man, new servers and stuff like that. Like, do you have chicken nuggets? No. It's like, dude, part of the training is eat everything. I don't really give a shit if you don't like this.
yeah,
Like, unless you have a major allergy or a legit, like, religious reason you can't have something, you're going to fucking eat it.
yeah, yeah,
Right. I just don't like this. I don't really care.
yeah.
Right. I mean,
That's why they say vegetarians make the worst servers. You
oh,
know,
God.
because and we've all had that where it's like well,
Yeah.
how's the New York prepared, whatever it may be,
Oh,
or how's the salmon, and they're like, well, I don't know, I'm a vegetarian. I'm like, I didn't ask you your personal I
yeah.
didn't ask you if you're a vegetarian, so you don't
Nobody
eat fish.
cares.
That's fine, but tell me something, like sell me on something. I'm giving you an opportunity to sell me on the salmon dish.
Yeah.
Don't tell me you're a vegetarian because that's just dumb. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh,
I'm saying.
okay. In that case, how's the steamed cauliflower? I.
Well, it's actually blanched. Um,
Oh, good. Thanks for clarifying. Thank you.
yeah. And
So
they
much
use
better
way
now.
too much butter.
Probably, probably. Well, you got to make it taste good.
Yeah, no, and then just kind of recap or touch base on what you were mentioning earlier with just taking advantage of everything. The other thing is on the job training happens when you first show up to that restaurant
Yeah,
and you're going to work with someone one on one on whatever that station is that you're on. And that will be the last time you work one on one with somebody on the station.
yeah. You're probably right about that. Yeah, you're just
So
expected to
once
know
you're in
it.
the building, yeah, every day is now on the job training with everybody else.
Yeah,
And yeah, it's don't wait for the chef or manager, whoever it is, to put you on that next station so you can learn it.
right.
Like no, it's you only get put on that station two things, like battlefield promotion, someone didn't show
Hmm.
up and you're just the next best option,
Yeah,
you know, or you just next thing you know you're getting scheduled there because you've been covering it or working on it, and they see that, hey, you know what, they can pull this off, and they'll start scheduling you on slower days of the week just to kind of build you up. And that's your
yeah,
training
yeah.
is
Literally.
working
Yeah,
slower days, so they can kind of minimize any fuck ups.
yeah, yeah,
um, but yeah, that's on the job training, so don't
yeah. For
expect
sure.
like, well, I wasn't trained on this. Well, yeah, you were.
Yeah. So
I
my
mean,
my first job at Roy's in Newport Beach, again, first time ever working in a kitchen, and you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But I remember coming home, and this is just a funny little story. Coming home, and I don't know if it was like my first night or if it was probably my first month I'd been working there, and I woke my wife up in the middle of the night calling back tickets. Fire 32, Fire 27. She's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, they were calling out tickets in your sleep last night, your numbers. And I'm like, oh my God, those are table numbers. She's like, what are you doing?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Or you go to sleep just listening to the sound of the printer. You're just like, it won't go away.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh, I never thought about that actually, but that is
Yeah,
hysterical.
it's like
Totally.
it's white noise.
That's
It's
white
like
noise.
just a
Yeah.
constant ringing in your
Yeah.
ear now.
That's
Eek, eek,
fantastic.
eek. You
Fantastic.
know?
Yeah. Well, the
Yeah.
second job I had, we as cooks, so I worked at the Napa Rose at the Grand Californian Hotel at Disneyland here in Anaheim. And that was my second job. And what an incredible place that was. That was Disney's when they built that hotel. They wanted a fine dining restaurant on the West Coast because they don't have anything other than like Goofy's Kitchen out here. They don't have a serious. They didn't have a serious restaurant
Right.
in California. Disney. They do back east in Florida, but not out here. So they built the Napa Rose to be exactly that. A 234 seat fine dining restaurant. And wouldn't say it's true fine dining, but I'll tell you what, it was pretty damn close. Because we had incredible people working there, extremely knowledgeable, awesome place. I get in working there, and it was a very hard job, which I really appreciated. No tickets. Can you imagine a 234 seat restaurant, and as a cook, I got no tickets. Everything got called out to you. And that scared the death out. I mean, I'm like, there's no way I'm going to remember this. My memory is horrible to begin with. And I'm like, there's no way I'm going to remember these. And it takes time, but I learned that the value of that is that if you stand there and watch your cooks, they spend a lot of time staring at tickets. Where am I?
Yeah.
Where am I? You know,
and worrying about the wrong fucking thing.
Yeah, well, they're wasting time. They're spending 15-20% of their time reading a ticket. If that ticket were just called out to them and they call it back, and they might forget it, but then there's communication. Hey, chef, I've got, 4 chickens coming up, and one's no sauce. Another one is, extra well done or something like that. And then it's like you just have that quick conversation. The chef's going to be like, yeah, no, here's to keep you on track. But that's the beauty of it. I mean, the no ticket aspect, I thought that was just brilliant, honestly. If I started a restaurant, that's exactly what I would do. I would go to the no ticket system, just to keep things flowing better. Keep your head down. You're able to spend more time cooking. You're not forgetting things because you're only cooking. Yeah,
that's the only thing you have to worry about is just don't fuck it up.
Yep.
And remember that extra well done chicken is coming up with that steamed cauliflower.
Well, that's the only way to serve it, I think. Steamed cauliflower and well done chicken. That sounds like you'll be in business for about a day.
Extra butter.
Extra butter on the side, though.
Yeah, but hey, make sure that extra well done chicken isn't dry.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I got to say, the one thing I'll probably never put on a menu again is smoked chicken, because in the smoking process, you tend to get kind of a red ring around the exterior of the chicken in the flesh itself. I can't tell you how many returns I would get on that. This chicken's raw; it's not cooked. And I'm like, no, literally, it's cooked. That's actually just the coloring it gets as it's being cooked. I took that off the menu. I've never done smoked chicken since. That was the one time.
Yeah, even out here in Texas, where everything's fucking smoked. Yeah. It's always a challenge because you'll have it because it doesn't cook at a high temp either, and so the flesh will always have a little bit of a pink to it.
Yeah.
Just whether it's from the smoke or what have you.
Just the natural color of the chicken.
Yeah. And so, but the amount of people just freaking out about it, and it's like, you can't argue with them. You're like, okay.
What you can do, take it and try and make it well done and juicy, I guess.
Yeah.
That tends to happen.
All right, brother.
Yeah, cool, man.
Well, unless you got something else. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What do you geek out on the most when it comes to food and cooking?
I don't know. Lately, I would have to say Neapolitan pizza dough. That's kind of what I've been geeking out on lately because I have a really good pizza dough recipe, but this is a different. Again, you can use the same recipe but make the dough differently, and you have different results. So I would say I'm kind of obsessed right now with making the perfect Neapolitan pizza dough.
Okay.
Outside of that, I don't geek out too much on anything, I don't think.
Interesting. Yeah. Because the Neapolitan pizza dough is flour, water, yeast. Right? I don't even think it's allowed to have salt in it. Like a true...
Yeah. I don't know that... I guess it depends on which guy from Italy
you're not trying to go for... Yeah, you're not trying to go for any Neapolitan certification in your fucking...
Yeah, exactly. I don't have the perfect... pizza oven that's got the exact right number of tiles on the outside. Literally they are that specific in Italy with Neapolitan pizzas. The cooking vessel has to be the exact right size. It holds this many of these 1 by 1 inch tiles. It's insane how ridiculous it can get. So a little salt in your pizza dough doesn't really hurt, I don't think. I think that's probably the last thing they'd be worried about. But but emulating
Hmm.
it is as much as possible, you know.
Sure. You like that pizza oven you got?
I do actually. It's not the best thing in the world, but I love that I can move it. It's not, you know, it's just an uni, UUNI, not OONI. I think that's a different brand, or maybe they renamed their own brand. I have no idea. But yeah, I really enjoy it actually. We've just been doing some pizzas lately, but before that, I had a salt brick, just like a pink Himalayan salt brick kind of thing that's good for serving on. I put that in there and heated it up with the oven, and then I did a couple of dry aged ribeye steaks on there on top of the salt bricks and cooked it that
Oh,
way in the oven.
nice.
That was pretty cool. But yeah, I like it. It doesn't. It's stainless steel, and it doesn't really hold heat very well. Every time you open that door, it drops heat pretty quick. So you have to be a little fast, I suppose. It's it does pretty well. Yeah, I'm overall I'm pretty happy with it. Again, just like anything, like a recipe, it kind of takes practice to get it down. You know.
Yeah. Oh, and so I just looked it up. They did change their name.
Okay. All right.
They went from UUNI to OONI, which they said, which is phonetically is the phonetic spelling.
Huh.
So I bet they just had so much
They didn't
trouble
figure
with
that out the
people.
first time.
Well, I mean, that's, I believe they're a European company that came to the U.S. and were like, oh man, I didn't think we'd have to be
Yeah.
struggling with something as simple as,
Yep.
you
Well,
know,
I think for the price, they're a couple $100. Mine's not just a pizza oven; it's like the Pro or something. So it's just a little taller vessel, and they have accessories also. Like I bought a little cast iron pot that I'll do like seafood stews or ciopinos in. It has a top to it as well that doubles as like a sizzle platter kind of thing if you wanted to do
cool.
your cauliflower. I think we keep bringing it all around to your blanched cauliflower. You can put that in there too and actually give it some character if you want.
At that point, man, it's already been boiling for, I don't
Yeah, it's ready for
know.
puree. It's ready to be
Yeah.
pureed.
I mean, the chances are too, it was the first thing up in the window. And then by the time your well done chicken came up, they needed to blanch your cauliflower again
Oh yeah,
to get it up to temp.
yeah.
So
You got to be careful with food sitting in a hot window, man. That stuff will just it'll destroy everything you make. That's for sure.
yeah,
It'll
well, I
boil and
mean,
stick every sauce you have up to a pan to the plate. Yeah, it ruins
yeah,
food. So
I mean that's what it's for, though, is to keep all the food hot, though, right? No,
yeah,
no, it's a
yeah,
fucking warmer.
yeah.
It's
It's
there
keep
to,
my plate hot, but.
yeah,
Yeah, I always get nervous when I see restaurants that don't have that, and I see food sitting, and it's like, man, that food is not going to be like. If I were the chef, I'd be like, guys, this has got to go out. We don't have a warming station here to hold this food warm. It's got to go out. It's room temperature here. It's 75 degrees in this restaurant. This food's cooling down really fast.
hmm No, I've had one kitchen too where the makeup air would blow down
Oh,
almost just like
yep,
right down in between the line and like where the cooks were plating.
yep,
So I mean, in like during the winter, it would be cold as fuck,
yeah,
and it was just like getting hot food into that window was
yep,
like, man, it was like once it came time to plate, it was like everybody now go, and we had no control over this like tornado of like Arctic front just blowing
yeah.
on the line.
Yeah. I've been in that situation too. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, air conditioned makeup air. And it's
Yeah,
like
in the
really,
winter.
yeah, in the winter, even in Orange County, it gets a little chilly. It doesn't get cold, but it gets a little chilly. Nobody wants that though on the line. It's great in the summer, I guess, but yeah, a little too warm, a little too cold.
Right. Well, Chef, I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Chad. It was great talking to you. I
Yep.
appreciate it.
And thanks for listening to this episode of Inside the Pressure Cooker. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the show and leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you on how we're doing. And lastly, if you'd like to be on the show, go to insidethepressurecooker.com and fill out the form. It'll tell me a little bit about you, some of your story, and how it applies to the show. We'd love to hear from you and love to have you on the show.